Welcome to the REI Hacker Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of real estate success. Join us as we dive into the journeys of top investors, mentors, and industry experts. Learn from their experiences and navigate the highs and lows of the investing world. And now, let's hand it off to our host, Benson Juarez.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. I'm really excited for my next guest. My friend Jade Jarvis is with us. Jade is a professional coach, transaction coordinator, and educator. She's been in the real estate business for over 10 years and is currently an operations manager for Pace Morby. Jade, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We were just catching up here. We were just up in Montana at community camp, had an amazing time. So many great people up there, so many amazing experiences. What was your experience like? And maybe tell some people about it.
So first off, thank you so much for having me. I feel honored to be here and talk with you today about all things real estate and operations and whatever else we get into. Montana community camp was absolutely amazing. I love Pace's vision for community, and I love that he continues to drive the point of community forward and doesn't let himself get caught up in coaching or being in this space of education. Like, he always brings it back to community, which is really where I think I've been part of lots of coaching programs and out there in lots of education programs. And that seems to be the piece that most people are missing. And so I think it's really cool that that is his biggest focus and allows us to continue keeping that the center of what we do. So community camp was amazing. I got to put faces to names and make them go together, which is always really hard for me. In his operations, I get emails from thousands of people, and they're faceless people for the most part, until I get to go to events like that and put names to faces and get some actual real life interaction with people.
Oh yeah, there's just so much going on. It's pretty overwhelming, but I had an absolute blast too. And I think you're so right about the community aspect of it. I don't think there's anybody out there that does it better than he does. But he puts so much emphasis on it and really just makes sure that the team, the whole team is on board with that vision. And I got to tell you, like, just the people that you guys have there, everybody's on board with it. Like, it doesn't seem like anyone's really like, pretending or, doesn't believe in what the vision is. So it's got to be pretty cool to be part of that.
It is really cool. And that is something that makes it even more cool than the idea itself, is having teams that really believe in it and are very synergetic, and everyone's there for the same goal. Everyone wants to see the same outcome and willing to do their part to get there. And it's just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I had an amazing time as well. And, when we were, when I was just introducing you, when, one of your roles is education and coaching. And, you've been, in the adult education space for way longer than you've been in real estate. All the way going back to your cosmetology days.
Yep.
Tell me about the evolution of how you started in business to how you got here today.
It's really funny. I actually, when I was quite young, fresh out of high school and thinking about getting married, I wanted to either be a nurse or a cosmetologist. And very different careers, obviously. Whenever I tell people that, they're like, that's interesting. But those are the two things that I really thought about doing. And when it came down to it, I'm like, you know what? I don't love school. I know myself well enough to know I don't love school. Cosmetology was a year-long program, and I could go and do the thing. And then I'm like, if I still want to do nursing, I can put myself through school and pay for it with my license and by doing hair. And so that was kind of the route I took. Ended up having, getting married and having babies and all the things. So I never went back to nursing school. But in my cosmetology journey, as I was finishing up my regular cosmetology course, the owner of the school came to me one day and offered to pay for me to go through the educator program. She's like, I won't charge you. I'll pay for any of the expenses if you'll just come and learn how to be an educator, because I want you to be one of my educators. And at first I was like, cosmetology school. I don't know if you know anyone that's been through cosmetology school, but it's a lot to get through cosmetology school. There's a drama element there because it's
Mm.
lots of women in one building. You know, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Clients are dramatic, and they're not dramatic on purpose. It's just kind of like a place where women tend to turn you into a therapist. So there was just a lot going on all the time. And I'm like, man, I really don't want to be around this, but I could not walk away from free education. I'm like, oh, that's like a whole nother level. I can't not do that. So I went ahead and did it kind of begrudgingly.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got into it, what I realized is this is why the whole nursing or cosmetology thing was even a choice, was because I just wanted to help people. I just wanted people to
Yeah.
feel better because I was in their life, however that was. And so that has kind of translated into everything that I've done in my adult life. But the education side, once I got into teaching cosmetology, what I realize now is that I love being able to help people find the tools and tips and tricks that help them live the life they want to live. Whether that's actually doing hair, a certain kind, like I specialize in extensions at this point, and the women that I do extensions for are very much looking for this self-esteem boost that helps them be a superhero in their own life, play a main role, a leading role, and not be a supporting character in their own world. And same thing with real estate. Like now I'm in this space where I can help people learn the ins and outs of creative finance, and I can help them learn the ins and outs of how to do their documents for those things and how to talk with the title company, how to talk with investors, all of the different things, and being able to be part of giving them an education that allows them to then make the life they want is just absolutely, that's where I thrive. That's where I'm just the happiest I can be.
Yeah. So you were able to mix that with some entrepreneurial spirit, right? And
Yes.
launch your own company. So you're a business owner, right? But you've worn a lot of hats,
Mm-hmm.
coming through your career. And so you're also an agent
I
and
was in a former life. Yeah.
was okay, former life, so recovering
Yes.
agent.
Recovering agent. I was an agent.
And now you're in the real estate space. Were you always interested in the investing side of the business, or was that something you got dropped into?
No, I love real estate actually. And after being an agent, before coming into Pace's world, I actually worked for a company where I worked with investors, and we did a turnkey type setup where we helped them find properties that required, minimal to medium rehab, nothing massive, but you never know with rehab. We love the
Right.
lipstick flips, but there's always things that are required when you get really great deals. When you're buying properties for $30,000, there's going to be some rehab that's needed. And so I helped investors in that way. And I found most investors that I worked with, they were normal people like you and I, like living life, working a career or a job of some sort that they know this is the path. They know this is what's going to give them more bang for their buck and actually provide for their future, but they don't have the time to learn all about it, make all the mistakes themselves and all that. So it was great to be able to help them in those ways. But then I worked with so many that just really were clueless and weren't viewing it as an investment. It was more like a business to them, which was great in a way, but they didn't understand the risk side of it. So when things would happen on the property or tenants wouldn't pay or what couldn't be tenanted for a while, they would really freak out, and they didn't really have an investor mindset. And so it caused me to struggle a bit because I'm like, I can't change your mindset. That's not the space I'm in. I'm here to connect you to properties, and that was my role. And no matter how much I talked to the owner of the business, he didn't want to get into that. He's like, oh no, we tell them all the things and we tell them all the things. I'm like, yeah, but they're not offering any kind of coaching or community or like a way for them to move past their risk level or even understand the risk level that they're taking. Because in a lot of cases, they were so far removed from the fact that it was an investment that it didn't even occur to them that it shouldn't just work like the well-oiled machine it was designed to work
Right.
as. So it really messed with their mindset quite a bit. And I got to a point where I'm like, I don't love this. And I don't think I want to be involved in this because we're not giving them the resources they need to actually learn and grow and become this person and be able to do these things successfully. So got away from that and went into a business where coaching actually was the entire business model, was coaching for entrepreneurs. And I had played in that field a little bit as an entrepreneur, been involved in coaching programs and helped gotten to a point where I helped them run their education side of it and be part of the backside, which was really, really cool. But got to a point where, you feel like you kind of learn and grow. And then I was at a point where it felt very, very stagnant. Like it was
Yeah.
just the same people, and I was only helping people while they were in this frame. And then once they moved on, I never got to see like where they went after that.
Mm,
And so coming into this world is really cool because you're meeting people where they are and helping them excel to the next levels, but you're getting to see the whole path that they're taking,
right.
which is really cool.
Did you seek out Pace? Like, were you following him or looking at his content beforehand? You stalked him a little bit, or did it happen like coincidentally? Like, oh, there's a position open.
Interestingly enough, it was actually very organic.
Okay.
My husband follows Pace,
Okay.
and we've always been interested in real estate. And obviously I was an agent. We've always talked about like doing fix and flip type things together because it's something we both enjoy. And we even had a couple of properties that we purchased and kind of started down that road on when I was working for this coaching company, and we were throwing a big event, and Pace was actually someone who was coming to speak at our event. And that's
Oh,
actually
okay.
how I ended up meeting Pace. So I remember telling my husband, I'm like, oh, I'm going to meet Pace Morby. Like I actually had a phone call with him today and I'm going to meet him in person. And he was so excited. He's like, oh my gosh, that guy's so cool. And he has, he offers such amazing value. And it was a really cool moment for him that like I was in this space that he's like, oh, that's exactly where we want to go. It just seems very in line with what we're
Yeah.
looking to do. And so Pace came and I met him. We did a pre event interview, like we had him on the podcast, and I got to meet him in real life. And in email had been communicating with him about the scheduling and all of the things. And when I met him in real life, he stopped and he's like, I just have to tell you, in my world, I have a Jade, her name is Molly, and she does all of these things for me that I see you are doing for this company. He's like, and it's a very undervalued job most of the time. Like you do things that no one else even thinks of mattering, but they actually are what ends up running the whole show when it comes down to it. And I was like, oh, well, thank you so much for recognizing that. That's really cool because this is always the kind of the position I've held everywhere I've ever been, is this like this role that makes all the pieces work, but no one really values it that way.
Right.
Which
Is that the
I'm not,
program director role? Like, is that what you call it?
it's something. I mean, it's got to be something, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
sure.
operations manager, right? I guess
Operations
that's
manager, right? Like it's kind of like you're the catch-all. There's systems and there's teams and there's all of the things, but everyone has cracks in it and you kind of have to like fill the cracks.
yeah.
I always joke that like my position is actually like wood filler. That's just I'm wood filler. That's what I'm here for. But it was nice to have someone recognize it. And he truly did recognize it. I could tell from the way he spoke about Molly that he really viewed her that way and valued her and treated her as such. And I am not one that needs like gold stars or pats on the back, but I do like that I don't want to have like my work ethic question. Like I know how hard I work. If that's not apparent in my work, I don't want to have to fight for you to see that. So it
Right.
was really cool that he just saw it. And by the next time I saw him, he said, I see your potential and I won't be so outright rude as to try to steal you from these people because they invited me to this event and that is the only reason I'm even meeting you. It's like, but I got to tell you, you're playing for the minors. And when you're ready to play in the majors, you just let me know.
Is that a quote?
That's exactly what he said to me. And I'm like, okay. And I kind of laughed it off and thought
Right.
how funny he was. I'm like, oh, you're just being nice, and thanked him so much. And then a few months later, actually, it was like 8 months later, I DM'd him on Instagram. I felt weird using his phone number or his email because I had gotten them from this company. So I DM'd him on Instagram and just said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but um, if you were serious at all, I think I'm looking to make a change. And he got back to me and he's like, yes, I remember you. And can we talk today? So we got on the
Right.
phone, set it all up, and the rest is history, I guess.
So how long ago was that when you joined the team?
September.
Oh, so that's pretty recent.
Yeah.
Wow. I would have thought it feels like you've been there for years just because of like how well oiled everything seems. Like you put it all together pretty quick.
I agree. It does
That's
feel like it's been a lot longer, and in such a good way, though. We've
yeah.
accomplished so much, and I work with a few of his different teams, and in each area, we've been able to accomplish so much and go so much farther, faster. So it's been really cool, and even
That's
knowing what's
awesome.
coming up, I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone thinks it's cool, but it's going to be so much cooler in 4 to 5 months down the road when we have this and this in place. So
That's awesome.
our
So
internal
now that
teams are absolutely amazing.
you're with Pace's team, right? Like you're still an entrepreneur, like you're still doing your thing. Tell me about the Menace brand.
It's no longer a brand.
It isn't. Okay.
No, that was the coaching company I worked for actually. And
Oh, I thought
it
that was
was
yours, so it's not.
it was kind of
Okay.
not in the beginning, it wasn't. They had a separating of ways between the original business owners, and I went with one of the business owners and we started our own thing, and we just could not stay in alignment.
Hmm.
So we would plan out the trajectory and that's where we'd go, and then there'd be like a right hand turn, and I'm like, that's not a right hand turn we agreed to, that's not where I thought we were going, and I tried to make it work multiple times. Then finally I'm like, I gotta like do me and like make
Right.
sure that I'm in alignment with me, because it just felt like no matter which way we went, it wasn't working. And Pace always jokes about the fact that he's like, oh, people tell me all the time, oh, you change your mind all the time. He's like, no, I don't change my mind. I have like a 10-year plan and this massive trajectory of what I can see is going to happen. I'm just not cluing you in to year 5 and 6 right now because it'd be too
Hmm.
much to tell you. And I do believe, like, when he vision casts and we have conversations about what's coming down the pipeline and what things look like now versus what they'll look like in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 5 years, I can see he actually has the paths laid out. Like he knows where he's going in each area. And that is a very different feeling than the brands I had previously been engaged in. It was very much
Right.
like they were quick to action of, oh, this isn't working, let's go here. But sometimes it was like band-aided, let's go here, instead of like long-term, are we on the right path and this is just a growing pain, or do we actually need to make a change and do
Yeah.
things differently? And for me, it wasn't in alignment. And no matter how much I tried to force it, just couldn't make it work. And finally I was like, I need to be done
Yeah.
being involved here, because it's taking all of my energy and I'm not getting enough of the payoff from it.
Right.
I can't see where it's ever going to work because we're constantly changing trajectories so quickly, but not in productive alignment ways. We're not
Yeah.
getting closer to our goal.
Okay.
And that's one of the things I love about being part of Pace's organization. Not only can I do my own thing, I can buy my properties, I can renovate, I can, own them however I want, and it totally fits this environment in this wheelhouse I'm in already.
Right.
Also, I know that like all of the things coming down the pipeline, like he just announced the title company, what, 2 months ago, if that, I
Yeah.
think about 2 months ago, maybe three now. The things like that like everything he adds is not a deviation from what's being done. It's to support what's being done. And it's actually one more piece that just makes things more efficient and work better. And I love building this massive machine instead of like half building this thing and then going over here and building this thing, and they don't really play together. And
Right.
yeah.
But it sounds like your role is like ever growing too. Like at first you came on at a certain role, and then now you're involved in the education side of educate of Gator, and then you're also have roles within the transaction community, top tier TCs. So how has that been to see like, okay, here's what I'm supposed to do, and then it's like, oh well, why don't you do this and this and
Yeah.
this, and it could be a lot.
So this is what's actually fits right into what I was just saying about Pace. When we sat down and he vision cast with me, like, this is what I think your role will be, and this is where I see that you'll benefit and be great. So for other people, like we have like a 5-year plan,
Hmm.
but for other people, they see me come in, and I came in on Molly's team as a transaction coordinator. So they're like, oh, now you're adding Gator and you're adding this and you're adding that. I'm like, no, that was always the plan. And there were things happening in the background. It's just now you're privy to it. No pun intended.
Right.
Now you're just seeing kind of what's gone on. And that was one of the things that Pace actually didn't realize I had adult education background, which funny enough, I actually taught one of his sisters cosmetology. She was actually
Really?
took her through the whole program. And so I think I had the real estate, I had the adult education. So he's like, you know, I already wanted you to kind of be this figure in Gator. Let's just take it a little farther and see what you can do here. And we've been able to do some really cool things with the Gator course, and
Oh yeah.
it's been really neat to be part of. So I'm excited.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
excited that people are getting to see all the things, because it's obviously a lot of work, but people only see this much of it. And so now that they're seeing it, they're like, oh, how do you have time for that? I'm like, well, I've been doing this the whole time. It's built in and baked into what I'm already doing.
Right.
But
Plus, you use it in your own business too, right?
yeah,
You're not just teaching, which what a lot of educators do. They figure out that they can, coach better than they can actually go and execute,
yeah,
and they can make money coaching and selling courses, but not really doing it. But
yes.
you're doing both, right? So you and your husband are investing as well.
We are getting ready to reinvest. We actually last spring sold our properties and decided to go a different direction. And now we're like, okay, now we're ready to start again.
Yeah.
We've done the education parts and figured out where we want to put our time and energy and effort, and
Hmm.
how we can incorporate our adult kids at this point into that and get them involved in these things at their younger ages. We have a 20, 21, and 22-year-old. And I'm like, how do we get them doing these things now so that when they're at our ages, they're not doing the 9 to 5
Right.
craziness, and they're building their life and living their life as they're growing the way that they want, instead of I kind of feel like we're having to backward engineer it at this point.
Yeah.
So trying to give them a leg up and figure out what makes sense and how we can get them involved as well. So I
That's
think
amazing.
we actually have determined, rather than owning properties right now, we want to do the Gator thing for a while and do the
Hmm.
lending, and then determine, like, as our little family grows and we gain in-laws and kids that gain more skills out and about in the world, like, whose role would make sense to do these things, and whose role would make sense to do these things, and where are each of our superpowers, and can we actually make this like a full-blown family affair?
Yeah. So we've mentioned the gator thing a few times. So for those people who don't know what gator is, like what the heck is it? This sounds like it's just alligators playing in a swamp someplace. Like
It
what
is
is it?
basically alligators playing in a swamp. So basically what it is within Pace started the subto community, right? Which is teaching
Mhm.
people how to creatively finance and purchase real estate. So how to do it without credit checks, without banks, without all the things. How do they actually get into the property? It's a great education. But a massive piece was Gator, which for him is lending. It's lending on the properties. So sub two finds the properties, Gator funds the properties. So sub
Mm,
two students will go in and find a deal, and the seller is willing to do subject to, and all of the conditions are right, but the seller needs in pocket $60,000 to be able to go do what they need to do, whether that's a down payment on another property or moving expenses or whatever it may be. So Gator comes in and will provide the lending for that. And it's
mm.
basically a whole group of PMLs that can come
Private
in
money
and fund,
lenders.
hard money lenders, private money lenders that can come
Hmm.
in and lend the funds that are needed to make the transaction actually be seen through to close of escrow. So
Right.
there are other Gator strategies as well, lending money for EMD, for wholesalers, lending money for double closes, Morby methods, things where people need chunks of money for very short amounts of time. And the Gator gets a return from that, which is great. They're building like they're their own bank essentially.
Right.
And they're choosing who to lend these funds to, and they're making sure, in the education side of it, we make sure they have their collateral and that their security to make sure that they're as protected as they can be, but still also maintaining, allowing, and making sure that they remember you are taking a risk. You are acting as the bank. And for anyone who's ever gone out and gotten a loan, we know there are people who foreclose. There are people who stop paying payments. There are people who never go through all the rigmarole of getting a loan and never make a payment. And then you have squatters to deal with and all sorts of things. So making sure that they understand you are taking on these risks and you are taking on these liabilities. However, if you do your due diligence and research and line everything up the way you should, you'll be the best protected, and you will have the resources to know how to handle it when things do go south, because it's not a matter of if, but when.
Right.
There will be a time where things go south on something you've lent on, and making sure that they have the knowledge and understanding, which was the piece that was missing for me in the other one. Like, I didn't have a platform to be able to teach them about the risk they were taking, the liability they were taking on, what processes and steps to take if they did need to foreclose or
Hmm.
remove someone from a property and all of those things. So I love that that's all right here and we're able to do that.
Oh yeah. You just want to empower people with the right resources and support so that, like you said, when things go wrong, because they will,
Yes.
right? That they know what to do
Yeah.
and not freak out about it too, but know that there's other people in the community that can help out. And
Mhm.
there's so much different levels of experience within the community. People who have, never done a deal, all the way to people who have done millions and millions and millions of dollars in transactions, and to have that all in one place is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And then he also tied in the piece of transaction coordinators, and there's a whole TC community. So Sub2 finds the deals, Gator funds the deals, and the TC community does the transactions and makes sure that they get to the finish line and all the
Yeah.
paperwork is appropriate. And then you also have, like, between the Gator and TC, there's how do we supply the proper paperwork for lending, and what does that look like, and what are the safety measures that we need to take. And so everything he builds is like a building block that just adds to the overall picture, which I absolutely love.
Hmm.
He's not out there. He does have businesses where he's buying businesses with a certain business partner and things. And there's things he's doing that don't have anything to do with this. But where he involves our internal teams, it's all very, it's part of the whole ecosystem and the
Yeah.
ecosphere.
No, I love how he found that. I remember way back when I first got involved as like as a service provider,
Mhm.
he had all these personas that he had built out for people, because there's a lot of people who just don't have what it takes to do like a full end-to-end transaction and make money consistently, right?
Yep.
There's different skill sets and there's different resources that you need to be able to do it over and over. And so he's like, oh, well, you're an agent, but you're investor friendly. So you're a unicorn agent.
Yeah. The Avatar series,
The
where they're
avatars, right?
like,
Not
it's
personas,
like
right?
your superpowers, right? Like, these are the things you do and you do really well. So why not partner with someone who does this thing that you hate doing or don't do well? Partner with them, and you guys
Yeah.
together make like a superhero.
Yeah. Isn't there like dozens and dozens of avatars?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's and things too we wouldn't even think are important. And people discount their superpower thinking, oh, that's not worth anything. I don't have anything to bring to the table.
Yeah. I
Right. So
hear
they
that a lot.
quit. So they
Yep.
quit the business. Right. And so with this approach, this avatar series, it gives everybody the ability to find something within them that they can contribute and
Hmm.
still be part of it and actually do a deal. Right. Like doing a deal doesn't always mean that you are the one that funds it and close and you make $1 million.
Right.
It could be that you were the TC on a deal, or
Yeah.
that you had the ability to lend somebody $1,000 for earnest money.
Yep.
Now you've got a deal,
Yep.
right? And
And
that
that's the
helps
best
with
part is,
confidence,
yeah.
right? And they're like, oh, I can do this. So like when times get tough, they're like, yeah, I was part of this transaction. I'm not going to quit.
But finding that, I would call it a unicorn human who can find the deal, fund the deal, TC the deal. Like, you think about all the special skills that each one of those things takes. And these people do exist. Like, I would say probably a good chunk of the community could do the whole thing from start to finish. But
Yeah,
is that the highest and best use of their time? Because by the time you do all that, it would take you 6 months to do one deal. Versus
right,
if you really drill down and do the part that you're good at, and you bring on joint venture partners and partners, TC partners, and whoever else you need in the mix to make it go smoothly, you could close 10 of those in a month.
right.
So, like,
Yeah,
who cares how cool it is that you could encompass all of the superpowers yourself if you could only do 1 or 2 deals a year doing that, or 1 or 2 deals a quarter, even. Like, you could multiply and 10x what you're doing just by incorporating the right people into your circle.
yeah. Well, and we just look to like the typical like corporate America, right? You got your CEO, and
Mm-hmm.
you got your directors or your different people underneath the CEO, the C level people, and then your VPs, and then it comes down to the managers, and then there's people the minions. They're just getting all the little things done, right? It's very similar.
Yeah.
And in the investment world and the entrepreneurial world in general, like we try to do it all.
Hmm.
And no wonder people burn out.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
it is. I always joke that our org chart looks more like a spider web than
Yeah.
the actual like
Right.
break here goes to three, breaks here goes to three. Ours is like a spider web because our teams, because of how Pace has approached it and how our teams have approached it and the tools and resources we have available, have learned to use people's strengths and play to them. And if that doesn't fit this role that sits right here, that's okay. If they're wearing a little bit of this hat, that's okay, because everyone's doing that. And so it actually makes us way more productive, and we are able to move so much faster because I'm not worried. If it's something that fits that I can do, I can step in and do it rather than waiting for the org chart to tell me that Molly has to check off on that, or, Pace needs to be the one to make that final decision. Like, we know where everyone's strengths are and we play to those, and it allows us to just run full speed
Right.
ahead all the time.
I I believe that culture is such a huge part of making an operation like this run, because in the real world, like people like they want to own their vertical, like they want to own
Yes.
a specific thing. And if
I
someone
own
gets
my
in their
lane. If anyone
lane,
else even turns their blinker on, I'm going to freak out.
yeah, and they do, they freak out and it creates animosity. And next thing you know, you got inter-office strife because
Mm-hmm.
somebody's offended that someone else like took their role or what they were supposed to do. And not that they're taking credit for it, but that some people just get offended easily, and doesn't make for a good culture. And
It doesn't.
there's a
And
lot of churn in those businesses.
there is. And I hate to use the term because it's so crass, but it becomes a pissing contest.
Yeah.
Like, oh, heaven forbid that I'm good at something that someone else on my team is good at, or that's their role. Like, why does that matter? Because then if they're having a rough day or they're in a meeting and this thing needs to happen, it can still get done
Yeah.
because someone else has the skill set. And that is very much how our team approaches it. And I think it takes work to get there. I think it takes the right group of people to get there, the right people, the right place, right time. All of those things matter. But then also you have to have people who are open-minded enough to function that way and to have those hard conversations. Like, if feelings are hurt or something went sideways that shouldn't have, like, let's have a conversation about it. Why did that happen? What could have been different? How can we make it not happen again? All of those things. And that's, I think, where a lot of people get stuck. You can have all the right people and they can be the most amazing. It can be synergetic, but if they can't have the hard conversations, you're still going to end up in the same boat. There's still a level of toxicity there
Yeah.
that can't be resolved.
Hmm. So you are your role is growing within the Pace Morby organization. You're being
Yeah.
handed more responsibilities and more things. Does that take away from your projects, like the stuff that you like to do in business?
Right now it's been kind of nice because I get to peek into areas that I'm going to need in my arsenal anyway to be
Hmm.
able to do the things I really want to do. So it's been really nice. I kind of have like what we're doing. We went really hard and fast into owning properties, and even though we thought about it for a long time, once we actually hit go, we did it hard and fast and learned some hard lessons that I was like, oh, I don't want to do this, or this. Let's shift gears. Let's try this other thing first. And then eventually, I think what we want to do is more partnership based things and make sure we have the right partners in place, that if we do own properties, we have a property management team that can do those things, asset managers, however that's built, that makes me not need to spin all the plates. Me spinning all the plates is the bottleneck
Right.
because I know it needs to be done, but I also want it to be done right. And so then I'll hyper focus on that thing and these plates stop spinning. And so I need
Hmm.
the right people in place. So it's really interesting because it feels like I'm a little stagnant in what I'm doing for my personal stuff right now. But at the same time, the connections I'm making within the community and the operations I'm seeing happen and getting to take place, or getting to have participation in those, is actually building for me, where I can see exactly what I need and the pieces, the partners that I will need to bring in so that I'm not spinning that plate.
Right.
And learning just more about me. Like, these are plates that, like, I know they need to spin, but I don't want to spin them. So I need partners that spin those plates for me. And so I'm in building mode right now,
Right.
which is great. I kind of feel like I'm hibernating a little bit.
But building too, like your acceleration is going to be much greater than if you were just trying to do it on your own because
Yeah.
you have your, like you said, the insight. Like you're seeing all these other things happen and you're seeing people make mistakes. You're like, oh, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not going to put that in my business. So what is next for you and what you got going on? Is it more real estate investing, or do you see you buying businesses or launching businesses?
I love the idea of buying businesses and helping. So I have a really cool superpower, and I never knew this until I worked for Pace. Um, I can really get into a team and figure out, like, see how they're functioning and see where the deficiencies are and see where they need more efficiency and see where we need some systems over here. We have too many systems over here and it's clogging and making a bottleneck. Like, I am really good at identifying those things. And so the idea of buying businesses is really intriguing to me because I can see where I have that like immediate value there versus like real estate. I'm like, it's like putting together my own puzzle and it's great, but it's not like I'm looking at a puzzle where I'm like, all the pieces are here. They're just not in the right place.
Right.
And so that's kind of more intriguing to me than building my own puzzle, which is really unentrepreneurial of me.
Hmm.
But it's just such an interesting thing because I think entrepreneurs in general um, have so many talents and so many things that they have going for them, but they have blind spots that they just don't see. And it's pretty rare for an entrepreneur to be able to even say, I have blind spots and I know I don't see certain things and I need a person who can point them out to me. And then actually be able to handle the items that get pointed out and be able to make the changes. And so that side is super intriguing to me. And that's where I would like to get more involved. But I also, my brain and my knowledge from looking at history and has gone on in the past, what's going on now, and what will go on in the future. I know real estate has to fit into that and has to be part of it because that's where wealth and generational wealth and all of that come from. There will always be a root in real estate. So I really see kind of two paths, one where I'm very much focused in the real estate, and then one where I'm allowing myself to use a little bit more of my creativity and superpower and do these things over here.
Oh
Right
yeah.
now, it's been great because it's kind of a blend. I'm in this world doing the real estate and I'm able to find these areas that need systems and processes and maybe need a relook at how do we do this differently because we're doing it this way and it might be working, but we're working on something that's been duct taped and baling wired and got band-aids all over it versus building the appropriate vehicle to just get us there
Right.
more efficiently.
Yeah, I see some parallels between what you're doing and what I'm doing, right, with Privy, because I got Privy,
Mhm.
right? And then I go to like the community camp and people are like, "What are you doing here? Like you've got Privy." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I still want to build wealth and I know that real estate is going to be part of that.
Right.
And there's so much that I need to learn, right?
Mhm.
So why wouldn't I be part of this amazing community,
Right.
right?
And make
It's
all these networks and connections and shorten your curve.
100%. And then I get to like learn from people like Pace and
Yeah.
Jamil
Yeah.
and just like the amazing people they bring in, the educators and people who are inspiring
Mhm.
and can tell us things and help to reveal those blind spots. Like so I've
Absolutely.
found like some good, coaches and mentors through this whole process. And I know there's someone that you look up to in that space. Her name's Cody Sanchez.
Oh, I love Cody. She's
T-
amazing.
Tell me about that perspective. I saw an Instagram post that you did one time about her. Is she somebody you look up to?
Yes, I love her mindset on things. And I love that she just says how it is. And I am a very literal person. I have a really hard time with fluff. Like I have to make myself be fluffy. Because I'm like, I don't understand it. When people give me too much fluff, I'm like, okay, do you need me to change it or do you like it how it is? Because you're telling me you want it changed, but then you're also fluffing it so much that I'm like, do you really want it changed? Like it's very there's just too much crap to sort through for me. So I like that she's just like, this is how it is, and this is what it means
Mhm.
to be an entrepreneur, and this is what it means, and this is the mindset that you need. And she does not give you any disillusionment as to what it is, what it means to be an entrepreneur. She's like, you're going to have nights you don't sleep. You're going to have times that you're crying in your car on the way home because everything fell apart today, or you're the only one that can fix it. And there's 5,000 problems today that need to be fixed. Like, she's just very real. But she's also not negative. And that is a really interesting combination for me. I oftentimes, like, you've been in safety semesters and ethics and things where I'm like, I hate to be the negative one. And I do this in the top tier group for TC work as well. I don't want to focus on the negative, but I also want you protected. So I'm going to talk about the what ifs. What if everything goes wrong? What if you don't agree? What if da da da? What if you have to put all of your documents in front of a judge who was not part of this? How is it going to read? What's the story it's going to tell? And to me, I feel like I always have to preface this with, I'm not being negative. It's not negative. It's actually just mapping out and being smart, putting all the facts down and making sure that all your butt's covered in every scenario.
Yeah.
And so that side of her really speaks to me because she just is real. And real is not always pretty, but pretending real doesn't exist does nobody any good.
No.
All it does is it just sets you up for failure. If I tell you it's going to be crazy hard and we're going to need these 20 documents to make sure that you're as protected as you can be, and blah, 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 and I give you all of the terrible scenarios that can happen, and then at the end, none of those things happen, you just get paid, it's sunshine and rainbows and everyone's happy.
Right.
But if I tell you all those terrible things can happen and something actually happens, you're like, cool, I got this. We already talked about this. I already know how it's going to go down. I already know what I need to do. And it removes all of that anxiety and crazy. Like, I've never done it before, but also I knew it could happen. I'm prepped and I'm ready. And so I love that she does not have a negative approach, but she's talking about the hard conversations that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to speak with her? Like have any
So
time with her?
I met her at Squat Up Summit for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I've I've gone back and forth with her on DMs, which I don't know that are really her. It's probably a VA somewhere that's answering
Right.
her. So I don't know for sure. But I
It
got to,
worked with Pace, so
yeah, I mean, it worked. um, I met her at Squat Up. She is phenomenal. She is probably actually way more human, so to speak, in real life than she is on Instagram. It's a persona, and I understand that. But they say never meet your heroes because you're always disappointed. She was very much everything I thought she would be, and way more kind and humble than I ever imagined she would be. So I think that for me, it was a great thing to get to meet her in real life, and we did get to talk, but just a little bit. It was very situational. Was not the right place to like pick her brain about anything or anything like that.
right.
But she's just the way she like carries herself and the way she interacts with people she really is a true leader of people, and she really does just want to lead people to better lives, and it's their lives and it's their alignment. She's not trying to tell you what you should do or how you should do it. It's just like, do the thing that gets you where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
Oh yeah.
She's
Yeah, and
she
then there's another layer to that too. I have a coach who says, who do you need to be to get the things that you want?
Mhm,
Right. So like there's this whole part of like kind of changing, who you are and
mhm.
being that person. It's almost like fake it till you make it, but not really.
Yeah.
Like,
I would
but
say face it till you make it. Like,
there
show
you
up
go.
person every day until it becomes your nature.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Like there's so many doors have been open to you
So
by
many.
coming to this organization, and who knows where it goes.
Right.
Right. Like what's next? Right. So what are you looking forward to? Like knowing like the plan, right? And you can't reveal some things, but I gotta imagine some of this stuff will keep you up at night.
It does. There are days where I get spinning. I do force myself to meditate, a really good meditation once a week, um, and like recollect my thoughts on where I'm at, what the trajectory is supposed to be. Am I still on the right path? What do I need to tweak and change to make sure that we're in the right place and that we're pacing it correctly, and that we're going to get there. And that can be difficult, especially when things do pop up. You have the little fires that pop up, and making sure that you don't miss the forest for the tree, so to speak. Like that tree might be on fire and it might cause some damage, but like we can't not look at the whole forest still. And so
Right.
it's an interesting shuffle. And there's like I have like my five, I think there's about five main plates that are always spinning. But then I have these little plates in all these other areas that I because of the vision I've been given with Pace when he was able to sit, he vision casts with me probably about once a month. We'll have a phone call of like, this is what I'm seeing, this is the overall picture, and this is how it's going, or we need to shift here. And so that's super helpful. But because I have the overarching goal and the vision for what he wants this to be 5 years down the road, I can see things now in the areas I'm working in where I'm like, oh, let's just do this now. Because this is going to be a problem in 6 months. Why not just fix it now? Like we're
Yeah.
building a system, let's just build it right rather than building it to kind of meet our needs now, but in 6 months it's already outdated. So I'm trying to help skip level some things so that we're not having to build and rebuild as often, which has
Mm-hmm.
been super helpful. It's been really beneficial. Our top tier team, because of who we have there and this approach that we've taken to it, we've been able to like totally blow past different levels that we normally would have just gone through. Instead, we're like, let's just do this. We see this thing up here and that's where we're going anyway. Let's just skip these 6 different iterations of what it could look like and go straight there.
Right.
And so it's been really cool. Lots of amazing partnerships and collaborations within the communities to make things happen, and just opening doors and opening my eyes to like, oh, okay, this is how this community functions. This is how they're feeling. This is problems they're having. Like, how do we build that into what we're doing now rather than
Mm-hmm.
sidebarring it until we have time later?
Yeah.
So it's been interesting.
So whether in your own business with your husband or things you're working on that you like doing, or whether it's subto or pace, what are you most excited about here in the near term?
I am seeing more and more where between sub two, Gator, and top tier, it's becoming more and more cohesive, more and more like one massive community.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been really cool to see. And I think that with some of the programs we have coming out and some of the approaches that we're taking on, some projects, it's just going to be more and more cohesive that way, and just really solidify that everyone plays their part and we all need each other in all of them. And it just to be less of like a competition between the groups, like, oh, sub two's the best or Gator's the best or top tier this. Like, I really want it to be everyone just shaking hands and collaborating, because this is your role and this is your role. And it's okay if our roles kind of blur a little bit sometimes because I'm good at this and you're good at that. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it should work. And just
Yeah.
where everyone in the community is filling in the gaps and really taking accountability for their role and the overall goal, versus just, oh, but in my lane, this is all I was responsible. So sorry you didn't notice that. I noticed it, but I didn't say anything because it wasn't my role. Like, just more open conversations and more synergy happening within the communities. I
Yeah.
think that's probably where I'm the most excited. There's just something about adult education that, like, taking someone and allowing them to learn skills that allow them to live the life they want and build the dreams and the things that they want to do is like, I can't think of anything more rewarding. Like, you can help someone find the skills and the people and like figure it all out to make their life be the way they want it to be. They work the hours they want to work. They work with the people they want to work with. They are doing the things they want to do. Like, that is really powerful. And I just think most adults in the United States especially spend way more time at work than they do in their personal lives or with their families.
Mm.
So, like, number one, give them a skill, teach them the things that allow them to tip the scales more in the favor of, I do want more time with my personal life and my family, but also combine the two. Like, do it together, do it in a way that frees you up for those other times, like whatever it may be, but you're getting to live the life that you're choosing to create instead of punching a clock 9 to 5, doing the dang thing that the man says to. buying a house every 7.5 years or whatever the statistic is at this point, like upgrading and moving into the next one.
Right.
Like, I don't want to live the program. I want to live the life I want to live. And if I can help other people do that too, even better.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been so cool too, just to see that, you know, first as kind of like a someone on the periphery service provider, and then joining, being
Mhm.
part of the group. And I think that the Owners Club too is like another one of those great launches of programs that brings all these people together, right? Because and I don't know, maybe there's other places that that happens, but I think that the Owners Club is a really cool place to see all these people from these different communities coming together and really can figure out ways to help each other. And for you to be able to be part of that is really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy for you. For those that are listening, is there any sort of like, main takeaways you would hope that people get from like listening to this? Like, you're doing a lot of cool things, but it sounds like you're most passionate about seeing people succeed and having a little hand in, either coaching them or inspiring them. Like, what would you tell people who are listening who are like, "Man, I don't know if I can do this."
I think really for me, it is like learn how to be yourself, be authentic and be genuine. Like, and just don't be afraid to go for what you want. Like, I didn't know anything about real estate till I went to real estate school. I didn't know anything about investing until I started working with investors. I didn't know anything about hair until I went to cosmetology school. Like, but they were all things I was interested in. One of the things that I've told Pace and actually my team since starting here, it's so interesting. I have had the most random of jobs and experiences in my past. I raised 3 kids that were very close together, all boys, which creates a whole dynamic in and of itself that is interesting. Um, I worked at Paradise Bakery and decorated cakes. I took catering orders and my grandma catered weddings for years and worked on events. And so I have like this really interesting random skill set across so many different areas. And when I came into this, I always kind of felt like a misfit everywhere I was because I'm like, I'm so weird. I do this and I do this and they don't correlate at all. And they're like, I just felt so random all the time. But coming into this world, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've literally pulled information and experience from every single area I've ever had like professional experiences in. And at every single one of those places in and of themselves, I felt like a misfit. I felt like I didn't quite fit in. I wasn't someone who just wanted to do this thing my whole life. And I wasn't someone who just wanted to do this thing my whole life. And so I kind of collected all of these experiences and that, by the time you're 40 and you've done that, you're like, dang, am I ever going to fit in anywhere? Am I made to be somewhere? Or am I just this, like, I felt like the mayor of the land of misfit toys most of the time because I just kept collecting experiences and not being able to figure out why. And in working for Pace and on this team, it's really showed me like I have a superpower and I can actually make all of this make sense. So we have the community camp, huge event we just put on. Like, I actually have a background in event planning and catering and making things like that happen on a large scale, which we didn't have anyone on the team yet that had a ton of experience in that. So it's just like one little thing, but it's one of those things that I also, when everyone was talking about it, I'm like, do I say something? Do I tell them I can help or do I not? And we all tend to kind of shrink into who we think we need to be in the setting or who we think we need to bring to the table, and really like just being authentic and genuine, like, oh, I could help with that if you need, I have some experience there. Or like, oh, I don't know that, but I know this other person on the team used to do that because I've talked to them and I know that that's a skill that they have. And so I think just those human connections and
Hmm.
be true to yourself really help you uncover what your superpower is and how it fits into your collaborative team of people that you're working with. And my biggest piece of advice would be lean into it. Like, don't be afraid of who you are and just really own it and build and build and build through all of your experiences to where you have the experience that you want and you're able to share that with people who don't yet have that experience and help them along the way.
Love it. Love it. Well,
I don't know if any of
Jade,
that made any sense, but that's where I'm
it
at.
did. It did. And we were trying to pull it full circle, right? Because we talked about a bunch of different things, and it was just really cool to get to know you at a deeper level. And learn about your background and have you share some of your experiences. And I know that our listeners are really going to appreciate hearing that and getting inspired. And there's just so much cool stuff that you've done, and you bring all of that to the community, and you just give. You're constantly giving, and I see that. So I thank you personally.
Thank you.
Yes.
I love that.
Well, thank you so much for being here and taking some time to talk with us. Looking forward to seeing how like things blow up for you and what you're working on. And for those of you that are listening, thank you so much for listening to the REI Hacker podcast. Keep an eye out for future episodes of really, more inspirational and more, good stories from really cool people like Jade, and share this with your friends and your family, and just keep an eye out for more stuff in the future. So thanks for listening. And Jade, thank you again.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Anytime.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.